What's up, guys? Welcome back to my channel. My name is Joannis or Joe Hatagwa. I'm a Sierra Leonean American now living in Freetown, Sierra Leone. And if you want to know what's going on in the news and around the continent of Africa and in Sierra Leone, then this is the video for you. All right. We are live. We're live on TikTok. We're live on YouTube. We're live on Facebook. A couple of YouTube channels, a couple of Facebook channels. We're live on Instagram as well. Let me know if you guys can hear me. Give me a thumbs up so I know you guys can hear me. Let me get a thumbs up so I know you guys can hear me. So, and then also let me know where you guys are watching from. Where everyone's watching from, so that I can know where everyone is. All right, so Manelik on YouTube said you can hear me. Nice. What about TikTok? What about Instagram? Where you guys watching from? Let me know where you guys are watching from. All right, Kwame Moss said you can hear me. Cool. On Instagram. Liza said you can hear me. Tice McGee said you can hear me. Cool. All right, Mr. Big Van Knight. Sorry, Mr. Big, wait, what is it? Mr. Big O Van Knight is from Philly. What's up? We got, what is this? Fiji's Idadi. Sorry, Nigeria. Shout out to you. James is watching from Texas. Emery Harding said you can hear me and you're from London. Nice. Robert Grissom's from Indianapolis, Indiana. Yes, as usual, checking in. Nice. DeWill is from Philly. Nice. Flavia's from Brazil. Okay. D. Austin is watching from New York. Cool. Okay, New York. I lived in New York for most of my life. Let's see. Armetta J is watching from Pasadena. I used to work for a company in Pasadena called OpenX back in the day, 2011 through 2014. Destination Africa is in the group. Accra Day, of course. Destination Africa from Accra, Ghana. Of course. John always representing Nigeria as usual, of course. Tice McGee from New York. Smart Rich Science from VA. Nice. Who else do we got? Let's see. I don't know how to pronounce this one, but I'm gonna say Harrington from Mississippi. You Ain't Slick. It's a funny name. From Ghana. What's up, You Ain't Slick? Steve is from Australia. What's up? Washington State. That guy IK is from Washington State. Big Overnight Bro is watching from, where you from? Oh, you said Big Overnight. Oh, sorry. Yeah, Big Overnight Bro. Where are you watching from? Definitely want to know. All right, cool. All right, so we got Kwame Moss is watching from Iowa. So guys, if you're on TikTok, or if you're on Instagram and you want to see what's going to be on my screen and you want to see some of the comments that I'll be reviewing, you want to head over to the profile, my profile, and there's a link in my profile. That link is my link tree. The top link in my link tree will drive you directly to this live. So it says join me on YouTube Live right now. Click on that. That'll bring you to the YouTube Live. Who else do we got? Okay, so You Ain't Slick is also calling in from watching from Ghana. I keep saying calling in, but you guys know what I mean. Mr. Big Overnight is from Philly. Let's get it. All right, Philly's in the building. As I mentioned, I've been to Philly many times. Had Philly cheesesteaks back in the day when I used to be a carnivore. Not anymore. All right, cool. So today we got a lot to go over. We're talking about news in Africa and specifically stuff that's happening in Sierra Leone as well. There's stuff happening all around the continent. We're going to talk about some updates to some of the conversations we've been having over the last 2 weeks. We're also going to talk a little bit about my opinions on these things, and I want to hear from you guys, your opinions on some of these things. There's a lot going on. And so I picked a couple of different stories because we don't have all night, but I wanted to make sure I went over some things for sure. So James says, never been to Philly and New York. All right. All right, cool. JA says, hi. What's up, JA? Again, if you guys are watching on Instagram or on TikTok and you want to see what's going to be on my screen and follow along with the comments, you should click on the link in my profile. That link is, shout out to the City Kitchen. That link is, the link is a link tree at the top. That top link, join me on YouTube now, live right now, will be the link that'll take you right over to this YouTube live. I just updated the link, so it should be there. It should take you right over to the YouTube live. All right, cool. Let's get into it. So many of you guys are new. Not everybody knows who I am. So real quick introductions for those who don't know me yet. My name is Jonas or Joe Hatagwa. I'm a Sierra Leonean American now living in Sierra Leone. Yes, I made the move. I lived in Ghana for 2 years before coming to Sierra Leone. And let me tell you guys something. Every day in this country makes me want to say, did I make the right decision? But no, I'm still happy to be here. Some progress has been made. I've been building a house here. I'm moving in this week to the guest house anyway. So that's some big news. And we got some travel coming up. So I'll be in Ghana for a couple of weeks starting next week. And then I'm going to Tanzania, and then I'll be back in Ghana after that. So I just, about 2 months ago, I came back from Gambia, which was a trip as an influencer. And then I will also be going to Tanzania as a trip as an influencer as well. And I'll talk a little bit about that in a second. Okay. So one person's asking, can I do a call to your show? Can I do a call to show you our work in my factory? Yeah, sure. Just DM me. We'll talk about it. All right. So, or actually email me. My email, I have my email up on the screen. So, as I mentioned to you guys before, YouTube has demonetized the channel. So if you guys, some people used to send support while I was live. So if you want to, the information is down there below. But my email is also here. So if you guys want to email me and catch up with me, just message me there. Jacqueline says, awesome. It's good to be out of the USA. It is good to be out of the USA. Doesn't mean that I won't be going back. I was there twice last year. So anyway, let's get into today's content. And I'm going to continue doing some introductions just so you guys know a little bit more about me. There's a lot of new people who join on Instagram and on TikTok who aren't as familiar with me. So if you're joining, you'll get a little bit of an understanding of who I am. Eventually, and also for those of you on YouTube who don't know, there's a lot of new people on YouTube as well. I can't see all the people on YouTube, so I don't know how many of you are new, except for the ones that comment. But I know I can see a bunch of new names on Instagram and on TikTok. We haven't met yet, so you guys aren't as aware of who I am yet. You might just see some of my content, but not have seen too much about me. JA says, what part of Ghana? I will be in Accra, likely East Legon Hills. Salon TT says, hi, Joe. What's up, Salon TT? All right. Let's get right into it. It's been a long day, guys. I feel like I say that every Monday. It's been a long day. This has been an especially long day. But let's get it going because it's not your problem, right? All right, cool. We're going to run through this really quickly, just a little bit about what I do and the services I make available. I know somebody a couple weeks ago said it sounds like an infomercial, so I'm not going to spend too much time on it. I just want to make sure you guys are aware of what I got going on if you're just following the channel. Okay, so JA is actually Jada. I'm new, but I followed Instagram for a long time. Shout out to Jada. Nice. Well, thanks for watching. I appreciate it. Okay, so I usually go live on Mondays. I always go live on Mondays. I've only missed 2 Mondays, and I've gone live on Tuesdays a couple of times in the 2.5 years that I've been on YouTube. I do tend to put out other videos on Thursdays and Sundays. The last 2 weeks have been very hectic, which again, we haven't talked about as of yet. We'll talk about it at some point in time in the future to some degree, but it's been crazy. So those last 2 weeks have led to some challenges with some uploads, but we still got plenty of content to look at on the channel. We just hit 1 million views on the channel, which is great, 1.1 million views. We just hit 12,000 subscribers on YouTube earlier this month. I think I had mentioned we hit 10,000 subscribers. So I want to thank all of you for the support and helping to get the word out about the channel. So, you know, you guys are the ones who keep me going, and I appreciate all of you. On Instagram, I think we're growing pretty well too. So, and TikTok has been pretty stagnant, but at the end of the day, we're happy to see that all of you guys are engaging. All right, so I'll keep you guys posted as new posts start coming, but right now it's just there's some things going on. We'll talk about it. So upload date and times, we'll talk about it. What I want to do is shout out Pearl Hotel. I'm in Pearl Hotel right now, utilizing their facilities. You can see behind me, this is the living room area of one of the 2 bedrooms that they have here. Usually I'm in the penthouse, but today I'm in one of the 2 bedrooms. So they have ensuite and 1 bedroom over here. And then they have a guest bathroom and a 2nd bedroom over here. So I've done 2 pieces of content. Well, actually 3 technically about Pearl Hotel. I did a tour a couple of years ago, and that was unofficial. It was a room I was staying in. I just did the tour when I first started my YouTube channel. So I did that in a room actually identical to this room, just below me. And then I also came back, interviewed Mars, who is the manager of Pearl Hotel. He's from the Philippines, so we talked about his move to Sierra Leone, why he would move from the Philippines to Sierra Leone, and what he's doing here. And then he also took us on a tour of the luxury penthouse that they have here. So if you're interested in seeing any of those videos about Pearl Hotel, that information is on the screen here. You can just look them up on my YouTube channel. Obviously, make sure you like, comment, subscribe, share this with anybody you know who's planning to move to West Africa or wants to know what's happening on the continent of Africa. Most of the content today is going to be about the news happening on the continent, but I'm going to leave some time open for questions. If you have questions for me about what my life is like here or what's been going on, I'm more than happy to answer those questions. So that tends to help people with making decisions about moving or visiting. Kwame says, hi, hope you and everyone is well. I'm doing pretty okay, Kwame, thanks. All right, so services. As I mentioned, I have consulting services in Ghana for airport concierge, local needs, local recommendations on food, restaurants, I guess the same thing, hotels, Airbnbs, all that kind of stuff. I can help with all those things. Residency services, business feasibility services, business registration services, all of those I can help with. Renting, buying land, and building a house. I or my partners can help you with any of those. So Sierra Leone, visiting Sierra Leone, moving to Sierra Leone, buying land in Sierra Leone, I can help with all of that. If you want to know more about that, you can click on the link in the replay or of this video, or you can head over to the profile in Instagram or in TikTok. And in there, you'll find a book private one-on-one 1-hour consultation, either about Africa or the next topic we're going to talk about. But a couple of different things have happened. Aisha Ladan and I had a session, and she actually is taking some action, and she has an apartment she's renting in Accra, and she's going to be Airbnb-ing it. And so I look forward to sharing that with you all, because that's coming soon. Also, Anita, longtime follower and subscriber of the platform, always commenting throughout the years, had this to say about the consultation. Not going to read it because you all can read. But that is, there's 2 of the 3 that I have. I got another one that I forgot to put in the presentation here, but glowing recommendations for the consultative sessions. I also do social media consulting, right? Obviously, I've grown a bit of a following across all platforms, 180,000 or so across all platforms. And so with that size audience, I can show you how to find your audience. My next door neighbor is calling, so let me message someone to let them know she's calling, because I cannot answer that. Sorry, guys, 1 second. Sorry, guys. Sometimes stuff just happens. Let me just make a note to someone else. Sorry, guys. These things just happen. She usually never calls, and she's calling after 9 o'clock. So there seems to be something going on that she's calling me about. So I just want to make sure. And she's calling back again. Okay. He saw it, so he's gonna call her. He wants to put another car in the, and I have the car key on me. Okay. Okay. Cool. All right. So this is Sierra Leone. These things happen. People interrupt in the middle of all kinds of different things. So I apologize for that. I just needed to let them know that I am unavailable to talk right now. So they're handling it. So no worries. Okay, so again, social media consulting on all platforms, right? Obviously Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube are my biggest platforms. Twitter and LinkedIn are platforms that I use as well. Across all platforms, I have a larger than the average following. All right, so Miss P says, hi, Joe. What's up, Miss P? Kwame says he's watching from London. Nice. And John says, waiting for my next visit to Nigeria. I know. I was supposed to be visiting Nigeria. Long story. It's coming. Next visit to Nigeria is coming. Trust me. It is definitely on my list of places to go. I really wanted to go this in the next couple weeks, but it just didn't work out that way. Anyway, if you guys want to book some consulting with me on social media, same place. Go to my link in my link tree. And click on book one-on-one private 1 hour session. Menelik, shout out to Menelik, who always helps with the timestamps. If you've ever watched the live, click on the timestamps. If you've seen any of the timestamps on any of the lives, Menelik has done most of them. So I just got to shout him out because like that is basically just volunteering to do it. And it takes a community to make this thing work, and it's not easy. And just shout out to Menelik and respect to him for taking the time out of his day, almost weekly to put together these timestamps for the live. So, shout him out. And thank him, because if you ever watch the replay and you want to skip to a certain part of the replay, he's the reason why you're able to do that. All right, so influencer services, I do content, talent services, and in-person services. If you want to know more about that, you can email me. Going to Tanzania, crazy. When I first started talking about this, it felt like it was so far away. And now we're just under 3 weeks away from me going to Tanzania, which I'm really excited about. This will be my second international trip as an influencer. And I'll be going to share my experiences there. So I'm looking forward to sharing that with you all. I'm going with Jay Cameron and Maximum Impact. If you guys still want to join, there's a link in my link tree to join. And then there are other trips that he does as well. Also going to Kenya, December 28th through January 8th. That's also coming up pretty quick. I'm going with Kia Wakesho Simmons and the folks at Traverse. So there's a link there. Join me in Kenya for New Year's if you want to sign up for that and join us there. I think a couple people have actually signed up and they're just working out the details. So shout out to you guys who signed up for this trip. Looking forward to meeting you guys in person. I also do Instagram marketing. If you have a business that you want to promote, you can promote it on my platform. And you can also email me if you want to do so. So a bunch of comments in Instagram that I really want to try to get to. A couple people shouting out Kenya. Jacqueline's in the Gambia. Shout out to Jacqueline in Gambia. So Jacqueline was asking, tell me how I was living in Ghana for 2 years. I went there for 14 days and then the Gambia for almost 3 months. It was more expensive in Ghana. At that time, now it seems more expensive now in Gambia, I guess. In the Gambia, I see. We'll chat about that. Let me answer that after I go through some of these other things, because I do want to get to the news because that's what people came for. And we'll talk a little bit about my experience in Ghana, though. I'll be more than happy to do that. So let me get through this quickly. So we'll start with some headlines around the continent of Africa, and we'll do some updates on some news stories in Sierra Leone. I know a lot of you guys have been asking about that stuff, especially last week. You had asked me specifically about some of these updates. So, you know, one of the things that I think is really important to talk about is the country of Libya and what has happened in that country. Gaddafi was the head of Libya, I guess you can say. I don't know, president. I don't know what you're going to call it, but he was in power for over 30 years. And there are many different viewpoints on Gaddafi as an individual, right? Many people said he was a great person that was trying to unite Africa. Other people say he was committed human rights violations, etc. I will say there was a lot about him that I was unaware of because of the vantage point I had growing up and watching the news in the United States. I know people who went to college with Libyans, who went to college for free, had free healthcare. No matter where they went to college, if you were Libyan, no matter where in the world you went to college for free. I don't know how many people know that, but that was something that was happening under Gaddafi's rule. The country has spiraled out of control since removing him from power, which, the United States had a lot to do with. Obviously, they have said that, what did they say? They've said that regime change is not a U.S. policy. They try not to do that, but they have done it in a few instances, much like it happened in Iraq as well. The country can spiral out of control, even with a leader that you might deem as a dictator and has human rights violations. It might be better than the alternative. And it seems in the case of Libya, that is the case. Now, that doesn't necessarily apply to this flood necessarily, as far as I understand. However, with the challenges of the country already spinning out of control the way it has been over the last, 10, 15 years since the removal of him from power and his subsequent unaliving, you will see that there are many challenges that are difficult to solve. One of which is there's a human trafficking problem in Libya right now. And not just that, there's a problem with people going there for safe passage to Europe and get stuck there, and their family and friends end up being what's the word I'm looking for? Their family and friends end up being extorted to get them out. We had this with my cousin's family, my uncle's family had someone who worked for them, and he tried to get to Europe through Libya, and they were extorting the family for $1,000 to release him. He was actually in a jail in Libya. And so these are the things that are happening post Gaddafi. So anyway, this flood happened, and it's really tragic because the number that have experienced loss of life is somewhere in the neighborhood of 11,300. Now, there are conflicting numbers depending on where you're reading this. That's the most recent update. They're saying that their numbers are conflicting, but this happened on September 10th. So it happened the day before I went live last week. So it happened last Sunday. And basically announced the OCHA announced 11.3K, 10,100 missing. So that's 21,400 families directly impacted, right? 170 other people had died in other areas of Eastern Libya. World Health Organization has 3,900 people, with 9,000 still missing. Data analysts in Libya said 4,000 confirmed that have lost life. And then a health minister said 3,200 people had been buried by that point in time. Nonetheless, the number is way too many. That's a devastating flood. And I don't know how many people were aware of it, but this is something that's happening. I'm sure you've probably seen some Pray for Libya posts on Instagram, and you're wondering what's that about. This is what it's about. And I just think as a country, Libya is a interesting one because there are some conflicting views on their former ruler. But I can tell you right now, the country is definitely overall clearly worse off without him in power. Now, I'm not saying that I agree with some of the things that he's done or many of the things that he did, but it's very clear that he had a strong impact in his country, and the loss of him has had a really negative impact on the country. Some people applaud him for the fact that he wanted to do a United States of Africa, wanted to have one Africa currency. That was his plan eventually. Now, some people are cynical and say he wanted to just be the president of Africa himself, and he was never going to go for like a election where all Africans could choose a democratically elected leader. We'll never know. I guess we'll never know. But that's just what's happened in Libya, and I just think it's important to give a little bit of that background, and then also so you guys know what has happened recently. So we talked about the Morocco earthquake. Now it was about 23 or 2,400 folks who had lost life when we first did the live last week. That number has climbed to 3,000 people. And then a number of others are injured, about 5,600, according to official figures. And this is not too far from Marrakesh. It was in the mountains right outside of Marrakesh. And so the city of Marrakesh has been devastated by all of this. So entire villages in higher mountains were leveled. In many of these, half the population has appeared to have lost their lives. The United Nations reported roughly 300,000 people were likely affected by the earthquake in one way, shape, or another. And UNICEF said that number included likely 100,000 children whose lives were directly impacted in one way or another. That is a lot of people who are directly impacted by one event. So for all of these things, of course, you could just Google ways that you can support. There are different organizations supporting Morocco and Libya. If you want to, you can find those. So moving on to Ali Bongo, who was the president of Gabon. So it has been announced that he was freed and is available to travel abroad if he wants to. You guys might remember he had done that video saying, I don't know what's happening. I don't know where my children and my wife is. Make noise. And there was actually a song made out of it that you guys might remember. And so this was a couple weeks back. I think it was early September. Anyway, he's been released from house arrest and free to leave the country for medical treatment. The military, which removed him from power, has said. So they said, given his state of health, the former president of the republic, Ali Bongo, is free to move about. He may, if he wishes, travel abroad for medical checkups. Gabon's military spokesman, Colonel, I've always gotten his name wrong, but you guys see his name here, said in a statement read on national television last Wednesday. So the statement announcing Bongo's release from house arrest was signed by a general who was sworn in as Gabon's new head of state on Monday. For his family, that's another issue, which is what one person said. His wife was still held on the 4th floor of the presidential palace, and his son, all of them are accused of high treason. So that's the situation in Gabon as we know it. So that's the most recent updated news in Gabon. All right, so I want to get to the stories in Sierra Leone, specifically Sierra Leone. There's a lot going on here, and people have questions. So a couple really quickly. Anita's in the house. What's up? And Mamas of the Earth said, Priestess Nuradina from Sierra Vista, Arizona. Nice. Shout out to Arizona. I've been to Scottsdale once. That was a while back. It gets really hot in Arizona. All right, cool. So protests and the arrest. So we talked about this. There were some protests recently, and there were some questions that you guys had about what happened as a result of those protests. I was out of Freetown when it happened. I heard some news, but there's a lot to talk about because there are many different developing stories coming out of this protest. Number one, the police actually released these numbers, but 2 people experienced loss of life, according to the police, during the September 11th protest. So they gave a situational update on the protest. The Mr. Will from the Office of the National Security maintained that they had different engagements with the Ministry of Transport and Aviation, as well as other sectors to maintain the peace. He said they used loudspeakers and other means of information sharing and awareness raising for people to understand the need to keep the peace within the different communities. He said security personnel were deployed at various locations to ensure that the peace is maintained. He also said the security sector is above situation to maintaining the peace of this nation, and we may always try to do that every time. He said a series of arrests were made and some are being released while they were still helping police investigations. They did say 2 deaths were reported from alleged stray bullets. They said an investigation is already underway to ascertain their actual cause of death. You can probably imagine it's likely from bullets. From the security updates, it was revealed that 4 people were arrested in Godrich, 60 in Waterloo, 8 at Mountain by the American Embassy. Those numbers are varying depending on which news outlet and what day the news was posted. So last week, or maybe the week before, we talked about Adebayo, right? He is the person they're linking these protests to. The protests that happened last year, where 27 people lost their lives, and the protests that happened just recently. There were some conversations around what makes more sense to everyone here. I think we had some disagreements in the chat on this one. Some people felt as though, you know, if you're going to lead a protest in a country where freedom of speech is not acknowledged necessarily, and don't go through the proper steps. So ideally, you're supposed to ask for permission to do a protest. That it seems as though that was not done. It's unlikely that it would have been agreed upon anyway, but it feels as though there was some steps missing in terms of agreeing to allow it, and then also the person who runs it, who they are saying that was the person responsible for it, was not there in person. So there was some disagreements there. Some people said maybe it makes sense based on, you know, strategy. You know, do what you can from where you are so you can continue to strategize. Others feel like, you know, for most protests, the people who are leading the protest are leading from the front. Actually, they're at the protest as it's happening. And so in this case, it feels as though he was not there. And so some people had some disagreements with that. So January Goat is asking, that's an interesting name. And so, and we're going to get to what the protest was about, and then we'll talk through this story. So what were they protesting? So January Goat is asking what they were protesting. So apparently they were protesting the rate of inflation, the lack of jobs, you know, housing insecurity, a number of other things that are just challenges many places around the world, but they are very specifically exacerbated by a number of different things, you know, coming out of the global sickness, you know, the currency devaluing almost by half last year, so many different things happening in Sierra Leone. And so people were protesting the current government. Basically, that's the gist of it, right? All very understandable things. January Gold says, Lenora says, hey, from Ghana. What's up, Lenora? We'll have to catch up when I get to Ghana. Okay, so Sierra Leone's Deputy Minister of Information, Yusuf, said that the government is working on means to extradite Netherlands-based Sierra Leonean Abdul Will Kamara, also known as Adebayo. They said, we stated the process a long time ago, and we will continue with the process. That's what Sandy said, who is the Minister of Information. Adebayo is accused by the Sierra Leone government of incitement against the president and other top government officials. Some locals have said his arrest is way overdue, since they believe he's responsible for several atrocities committed in the past 5 years in the country. Interesting. I don't know. You know, when they say some locals have said, I think it's always interesting, right? When this is Sierra Leone, and they've done a great job of reporting on a number of different things. I would just be interested to hear what some of those locals have said. Most locals I speak to actually support protests, but that's in every country. Actually, many countries are supporting protests because everybody feels their governments, wherever they are responsible for you know, the circumstances they're under. Even though some of these things can be uncontrollable, like the global sickness, right? And its impact on different. But anyway, the Netherlands-based commentator is accused of. Oh yeah, so I said that already. Oh, the Netherlands commentator is accused by some locals of orchestrating Sierra Leone's deadly protests on August 10th of last year. The protest was the deadliest in Sierra Leone. As they said, over 30 civilian and security personnel were reported to have lost life. From what I understood, the number was 27, but there's a possibility that there were others that were injured that had later lost lives. Several properties were destroyed. Adebayo commands a large following on social media where he releases his messages. As they say, security forces earlier this year warned against the sharing of content online that will ignite violence. So they are looking to arrest him. So people were asking, what's the deal with Adebayo? Now, will he be extradited? I don't know. I don't know if the Netherlands does extradition. And I don't know if they're willing to extradite him to Sierra Leone. There's two things that I think we have to figure out. I'm not really sure. Tim Black has an interesting perspective. He's saying they need to protest how the Indians and Lebanese control the economy and businesses. Yeah, I mean, or I think what we should do is have more of us coming back to this country and doing what the Lebanese and Indians have discovered is a way to build businesses here, right? I'm of the belief that at the end of the day, you know, the Lebanese have been here over 100 years. I don't know how long many of the Indians have been here. It is up to us, if we want to see more indigenous-owned businesses, to be the ones to bring indigenous-owned businesses to the country, right? I mean, there are a lot of conversations I have with people about Lebanese businesses. And if I'm being perfectly honest with you guys, in terms of my experience, and many times, and we talked about this on other lives, many times I've had better encounters with Lebanese businesses than I have with indigenous-owned businesses here in Sierra Leone. I will tell you that for interviews that I've done, people have asked to pay me. They've asked to at least offer me some goods and services. They've made recommendations of other businesses. Whereas with the indigenous businesses, many times I've had to chase after people just to be told, I think the season has passed and I don't want to do the interview, which is very interesting. Right after I was told that I should be interviewing more indigenous people, and these indigenous folks did not want to be interviewed later on. So, you know, I've had people show up 4 hours late for interviews. Indigenous Sierra Leoneans show up 4 hours late for interviews. And I will tell you, I have not had one bad experience with any Lebanese-owned business that I have been interviewing. In fact, I continue to bear fruit from those relationships, whereas I have not done so much with the Sierra Leonean-owned businesses. So I think there's a couple of different things. One, we need to be more involved in businesses here in Sierra Leone if we want to see better. And two, our indigenous-owned businesses need to be less complacent and be more on top of their business practices, much like their Lebanese and Indian counterparts. Because they aren't, not so many people are willing to go and do business with these folks. I just had a friend experience a challenge within a indigenous business this past week. And it was not rectified to her satisfaction. And she may end up going to a competitor that is Lebanese owned, right? And this friend of mine, our initial conversation was about the fact that I had been interviewing Lebanese business owners. And so eventually it led me to do a live about the fact that they're the ones that are showing up for interviews. And they're the ones introducing me to other people. And so we also have to take some responsibility as indigenous Sierra Leoneans about how we are treating other business owners and brands and people who are coming to try to promote their businesses if we want to see a change, right? So I do have to make sure I mention that because there's a lot of Lebanese slander, and I'm not going to say that, you know, I haven't seen challenges with Lebanese businesses and some certain businesses with some management and things like that. But in terms of seeing more indigenous Sierra Leonean businesses, that is something that we can control and we need to do more of, for sure. So Tim Black says, true, the government needs to make it easier for the locals to open businesses. Yeah, I mean, look, it's definitely not a very simple process, but they've talked about making it easier and like a 2-click process. I'm not really sure because I did mine back in 2019. But if you want, you can find out how to do it. It's actually not that difficult. In fact, I have someone who actually did it on my behalf, and it's really not that difficult. I think that people, to be a business owner, it's difficult in the first place, right? And so if you want to own a business and you can't go through the process of opening a business through your local government, you should not have a business, because businesses are difficult. You're going to run through a lot of challenges in business. And so, especially in this country. And so if you're not able to even just go through the process of opening a business through the government, then it probably doesn't make sense for you to have a business in general in this country, because you're going to be faced with many challenges to make a business, especially in a country with the population of this size and with the GDP where it is. So I do always like to mention that as well, because I think that thought gets neglected from folks. Because I do hear a lot from people that they say it's difficult to open a business. And I always tell people, if it's too difficult to open a business, then it's probably not the right time for that particular individual to run a business in this country. Those are my thoughts. You guys let me know what you think, but that's what I believe. Tim Black also said, I forgot how hard it is to work with locals sometimes. You're right. Yes. It's very challenging, very challenging, and disappointing from sometimes, to be honest with you. But that's not what this is about. But I did want to just make sure I mentioned that. So let's get back into this. So we'll see if it happens, if Netherlands allows for extradition, and if they do, if they would be willing to extradite this individual, Adebayo, to Sierra Leone. I don't know, that would be a very interesting time in this country if that happens. So I don't know. Well, I guess we'll have to just stay tuned and see what happens. They did say 46 individuals in Waterloo faced court charges for unlawful protest. Their next scheduled court date was supposed to be for today. Basically, so 7 women, 39 men is what they're saying, hailing from various addresses within Waterloo, made their inaugural court appearance on the 13th of September of last week. That was last Wednesday. These individuals had been apprehended by security forces on September 11th due to the alleged involvement in the unlawful protests that had taken place in and around Waterloo. The charges leveled against them encompass a range of offenses under the Public Order Act of 1965, including incitement, riotous conduct, disorderly behavior, throwing missiles. That's an interesting one. Public insult and provocation, among others. So in order to arrest them, obviously you had to have a law in place to allow for the arrest. And so these are the things that they were charged with. The security forces presented a collection of evidence, including rocks, stones, and old vehicle tires, and provocative place cards, which were seized during the operation to quell the unlawful protests. Following the court appearance, all 46 individuals who were identified as protesters were remanded in custody, so meaning they weren't eligible to go home, in the Kissy Town Correctional Center located in the outskirts of Waterloo. So we'll see. I don't know if they actually got their court date today. We'll have to see if that. We'll give you an update later. On the 15th, see how the number changes from 46 to 43 by the same news outlet, by the way. So the numbers can kind of vary on these kinds of topics, but just know it's around 40 folks, right? So they did another article on September 15th to say, see what happened to the 43 people who came out to protest on September 11th. The magistrate had ordered the detention of the 43 individuals. The 43 were accused and brought to court on 5 counts: conspiracy to commit a crime contrary to law, unlawful possession contrary to Section 17, the Public Order Act, riotous conduct. We've gone through all of these. It is alleged. Okay, so the matter was prosecuted by certain people, and they refused bail, and the matter is adjourned to the 21st. So initially it's supposed to be the 18th. Now it looks like it'll be the 21st before they are going to be seen in court. Okay, this is an interesting comment, a little bit on or off topic, but let's talk about it. So Kanona Minor says, I want to migrate to Africa so badly, but everything people have been saying about the continent is scaring me away. Let me say something about this, and I don't know where you're living, so it depends on where you live. But I would say this about the continent of Africa: it's huge. 54 countries on the continent. That's one. So there are areas, of course, that are not as safe as other areas. For instance, I wouldn't go to the south side of Chicago, right? Or I wouldn't go to certain areas of Bushwick or even Bed-Stuy when I'm in New York, in Brooklyn. So, you just know where you should go and where you shouldn't go. But I will say this, there are a lot of people who talk about how scary it is to live in Africa. But like, I had a conversation with somebody I know close to me and my family, and they're not willing to go to any large scale events because they're scared of a potential mass shooting, which is something that is very common in the United States these days. And so I think that that's something to think about, right? I mean, if you might be in the States, you might not be, but Sierra Leone and Ghana are both in the top 10 safest countries in Africa. They're also top 25 safest countries in the world. And I think they both rank ahead of the United States. So for context, let's just put that into perspective. So I hope that helps answer some things for you. Okay. Okay, so there was something else here. Okay, so that's what happened to those folks. So we'll get an update soon. Now, I do want to talk about the travel ban or the potential travel ban for Sierra Leoneans in government and the United States potential travel ban. Now, this is a conversation that's been talked about in circles. I'm just going to read the articles, no opinions on this at all. So I'm just going to read what they're saying. So on Tuesday, September 12th, Sierra Leone's president, Julius Maada Bio, arrived in New York, United States for the 78th session of the United Nations General Assembly. Under the theme, Rebuilding Trust and Reigniting Global Solidarity, Accelerating Action on the 2030 Agenda and its Sustainable Development Goals towards Peace, Prosperity, Progress, and Sustainability for All, the president is expected to proactively engage his colleague heads of state, government officials attending the UNGA, heads of international financial institutions, philanthropic organizations, and the media. Bio will also showcase Sierra Leone's development strides and highlight his government's vision for sustainable transformation for the next 5 years. He will further engage the key stakeholders before the commencement of Sierra Leone's tenure as a non-permanent member of the UN Security Council for the term 2024 and 2025. So now, his arrival just came 2 weeks after the U.S. Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, announced the implementation of a stringent visa restriction policy targeting individuals involved in undermining the democratic process in Sierra Leone. So the announcement follows a disputed presidential election in June, which saw incumbent President BO of SLPP re-elected, defeating Samora Kamara of the main opposition, All People's Congress, or APC. Kamara and the APC had refused to accept the result, describing it as a daylight robbery. Many international election observers also highlighted problems with transparency in the tallying process of the election results. National Election Watch, NEW, an election monitoring group that deployed observers in the polling stations across the country, also said the results declared by the ECSL showed there were inconsistencies. So according to Blinken, this is the U.S. Secretary of State, the United States will actively pursue visa restrictions for those deemed responsible for acts that undermine democracy in Sierra Leone. He said such acts include manipulating or rigging the electoral process, employing intimidation tactics to deter voters, election observers, or civil society entities through threats or physical violence, as well as violating human rights principles associated with the democratic process in Sierra Leone. So that's what Anthony Blinken said. Now, what was interesting is President BO actually talked about how the U.S. government pressured him over the 2023 election. So on Friday, and this is coming from Sierra Leone once again, on Friday, the president of Sierra Leone alleged the United States pressured him to intervene during the tallying of votes on June 24th election in the country. At the peak moment of announcing the election results, that's when issues arose. That's what he said. So he was at American University in Washington. The AFP reports that President BO emphasized that the Election Commission of Sierra Leone, the ECSL, had diligently carried out all necessary calculations and procedures. I was now requested to stop them from calling the result by the United States. So I don't know who is accusing who of interference. So that was his stance. After the election, a joint statement from the United States, European Union, France, Ireland, and Germany expressed concerns mirroring those of national and international observers about the lack of transparency in the tabulation process. On October 31st, the U.S. Department of State imposed restrictions, as I said, but it wasn't, the interesting thing is they didn't name any specific people they were imposing restrictions on, right? So the U.S. Secretary of State, Anthony Blinken, said, we're going to pose restrictions, but they didn't say on who, right? So that was just what they said they were going to do. So I want to play this audio. Hopefully you guys can hear it. This is one of those things that I'm just going to hope that you guys can hear. So let's see. Let me know if you guys can hear this.
Various observers, including the partner, have raised concerns about the fairness of the election, especially focused on the work of the Electoral Commission, ECS.
Can you guys give me that specifically on YouTube and Facebook across the board there? I know you guys can probably hear that on Instagram and on TikTok, but could you guys hear that on YouTube? I just want to get a thumbs up if you guys can hear that before I keep going, because the last time I was pressing play and you guys couldn't hear, and it doesn't make sense to play this video if you guys can't hear the audio. So while I wait for you guys to give me a thumbs up to tell me you can hear it, I will continue to read through the rest of this. So after the election, okay, so I said that on August 31st, the State Department imposed the sanctions, or they said they're going to do a travel ban. So speaking at the institution where he obtained both his undergraduate and graduate degrees after relocating to the U.S., BO mentioned his past transition from leading a brief military junta to overseeing a shift to democratic governments in the 1990s. He stated elections, irrespective of where they take place globally, including the U.S., are always subjects of contention. So you guys might remember President BO was a part of a military coup, and then later part of a transition, so kind of another removal of a person from office to move into elections, back to electoral rule. So he further added, when the U.S. questions the authenticity of the election results, it's tantamount to endorsing a coup. Okay, so really quickly, Lenore said you could hear it. Manelik said you could hear it, so I'll go back to pressing play. But before I do, Lenore says, Please look at the Global Peace Index, which lists every year the order of the safest countries. So yeah, just going back to the earlier statement about people being afraid to move to the continent of Africa, the Global Peace Index really helps let you know what the situation really is on the continent, which is much better in many countries than even countries in the West. So with that, let's press play. Oops, sorry. That didn't work out as planned. Let's try that again.
Various observers, including the Carter Center, have raised concerns about the fairness of the election, especially focused on the work of the Electoral Commission, ECSL. The U.S. State Department has issued visa restrictions on Sierra Leoneans involved in what they call election interference. And we'd all like to hear your reactions to those allegations and to the actions taken in response.
Elections are always contentious issues wherever they happen in the world, including in the United States. But I did not have the power to issue visa restrictions, of course. That's the difference.
Please allow me to continue coming to see you.
Elections are conducted by the body mandated by our Constitution, and its operational mode is directed by the Public Elections Act. Normally, before elections take place, because we have...
Okay, so Eric Pasima says it's not clear. So you're not hearing it clearly? You guys having a hard time hearing it? So basically, here's what we'll do. I'll put a link to the YouTube video in the chat. If you guys want to check it out, you guys can go check it out and watch it yourselves. Let me go ahead and find the YouTube video right now. I just had it up, so give me a second to find it again. Yeah, so what I'll do is I'll just go just look it up, send you the links, you guys can watch it. But yeah, so I'll just send you guys the link. You guys can watch it in your free time to get a chance to get a real feel for what was being said here. But I just thought it was important to kind of talk about this a little bit because there's been a lot of questions about this particular topic. And I thought, let me share what the president of Sierra Leone specifically said at American University. Let's see, Sierra Loaded YouTube channel. This video was just recently released, so. And of course, make it very difficult to find. All right, let me see if I can find it another way because this is becoming very challenging. Okay, these are some. Sorry, guys. I know that it's taking some time to find this, but some of you guys are asking for it, so I want to make sure I get you guys the video now in the chat, and then you guys can watch it. Okay, here we go. Found it. It wasn't actually that difficult to find. So let's see. So you can't put other links in the YouTube description, in a YouTube chat, but you can put a YouTube chat. I mean, you could put a YouTube link in there. Okay, so everyone said there was a slight echo. It was hard to hear. So here you go. Just check out that link, and you'll be able to watch the full video. But you got the idea, right? I read what he said. They called out some specific pieces of what he said. The embassy in Freetown. So what did the embassy in Freetown say, right? How did they react to those allegations? So the United States Embassy in Freetown has refused to comment on the allegations leveled against it by President Biya in the outcome of the 2023 general elections in Sierra Leone. So on Friday, Biya accused U.S. officials of calling him and requested that he halt the scheduled announcement of the results and asked the elections go into a second round. So the U.S. had expressed concerns, and so basically they declined to comment. Basically, the U.S. Embassy in Freetown declined to comment. So we'll move on. We're going to talk about the blackouts. And by the way, my Instagram video is about to end, so I'm going to start a new live. Let me end it really quickly, and then we'll start another live in a second. So guys, give me a second while I do this. You know, this is life as I know it. My YouTube live gets stopped every single time within that first hour. But this is the last story we're going over, and then we'll leave it open to questions if you have any. So let me just really quickly do this and share, and then we'll go live again so we can finish this up. Okay, so perfect. So we are slowly but surely connecting back to Instagram again. We are back live on Instagram, and we are talking about news around the continent of Africa and in Sierra Leone. We are on the last news story, so if you want to watch the previous news story, just go back to the other live replay. You guys on the other platforms have been watching live all along, So we're going to talk about the blackouts in Sierra Leone. There were some major power outages. We talked about it. We talked about the $45 million owed to Car Power by Sierra Leone. We talked about the reasons that were given that explained why the bill hadn't been paid. And so let's talk about some of the differences. Or some of the changes. So as of September 15th, there was a report that stated EDSA secured $63 million to boost electricity in Sierra Leone. So the Electricity Distribution Supply Authority has received additional financing under the Enhancing Sierra Leone Energy Access Project. The World Bank approved additional financing in the form of an IDA grant of $13 million. That's what the Sierra Leone Ministry said. The total for the project is expected to be $63 million US. So the ministry said that the project will address the impact of the geopolitical developments in Ukraine. They said that the project will also address and mitigate the rising cost of electricity in the country due to the protracted effect of the Ukraine-Russia conflict. Part of the project earlier in May this year saw the UNOPS through the through the Ministry of Energy, the MOE, signed an agreement with the World Bank to implement a $12.7 million project and aim to increase rural electricity across electricity access through mini grids and standalone home systems in Sierra Leone. The project is also is expected to also generate a total of 2.8 megawatts of solar power system capacity for Moyamba, 500 schools, 200 health facilities, and 3,000 households. Although access to electricity has increased in the past 5 years, the majority of rural Sierra Leone cannot access electricity. So I will say, it seemed like as soon as this announcement was made, more consistent light has been back. Man, it was a rough 2-3 days when we had seen this whole thing come out, but it seems to be back in a pretty good way. So a couple things to go back, because I think this is some of the original story. So Observer says, in a continent where progressiveness is gradually taking grip, there are exceptions, and sadly, Sierra Leone is one of the nations that is at best is stagnated, even worse, reversing. Sad. Okay, that's International Observer's thoughts. Abu Bakar Kamara says, hello, what's up, Abu Bakar? What's going on? CR says, what's your WhatsApp? Unfortunately, I cannot give my WhatsApp out on a platform like this, but you can email me. My email is right there, authenticafricanlife@gmail.com. It's scrolling at the bottom of your screen. So feel free to email me directly and we can chat. International Power says 6 decades, 8+ presidents, 2 major political parties, a civil war, billions of dollars in aid, billions of dollars squandered by the political elite and businesses. Sad, sad, sad. So that's international observers' view on what's happening in Sierra Leone. Yeah, I mean, you definitely echo the sentiments of many others that I've heard speaking around the country. You're definitely not alone in those thoughts, for sure. But those are your views and your views alone. My views have not been spoken as pertains to anything related to the Sierra Leone government. Okay. Another thing that I saw is September 15th, Sierra Leone government is to review their partnership agreement. So I've talked to some people who seem to believe that the agreement is unfair. Some people disagree, some people agree. It's a question of, I think, what party you support, I think, generally. The government of Sierra Leone is set to renew a deal struck with the Turkish energy company, Car Partnership. The new agreement will follow amid massive blackouts in Sierra Leone, capital, Freetown. The floating energy company is supplying about 60 megawatts of electricity to Freetown, and it's what's called environs, but operation was put on a hiatus due to the $46 million in debt. Some say 46, some people say 45. The country energy minister had told Reuters last week that the government subsidizes nearly a quarter of the cost per kilowatt hour charged by the ship. And the other issue was that the ship charges in US dollars, but the Sierra Leone government charges its constituents for power in leones, which has dropped in half almost last year in terms of its value. So that's the reason why they weren't able to pay the bill. So yeah, so that's what I think is important on this topic. And I will tell you, I'm grateful to see more light, because man, it has been challenging to not have a light. You guys have seen me go through that before, so I'm happy to have a light. All right, so we're gonna go back to Ask Me Anything. Really quickly, there was a question really early on. So if you guys have any questions or any other comments on anything we talked about today, feel free to post them. There was a question early on. Let me come back to full screen status on YouTube, Facebook, and the like. And then let me look for that question. So there's a question really early on of the question I think was, what was it like living in Ghana for 2 years? Right? I think that was the question. So let me explain what that was like. So I really enjoyed living in Ghana. I'm not gonna lie to you guys. I liked it a lot. For me, though, I felt like my time there had run its course just because I was spending more time in Sierra Leone year over year. And I have a house that I'm building here, which I can live in for free. So instead of paying rent to someone else, I can actually move in for free. So there was just that. But like, and then also other things that I mentioned, being a big fish in a small pond, having the size audience that I have, and starting my social media agency, it was the thought that I would be able to transition here to Sierra Leone and be able to begin to get clients and things of that nature sooner than later, right? And to be able to build a business here a little bit easier than I would have in Ghana, because I'm Sierra Leonean of Sierra Leonean descent, and I have a network of people here. But my life in Ghana was great. You know, I built some really good friendships there, lifelong friendships, definitely. Shout out to Masa and Kenya, and all my other friends too. Like, you know, we got, you know, I don't want to call anybody and miss anybody. Let's say Chima and Luke, and then a few other folks. I made some good friends in Sierra and in Ghana. So looking forward to hanging out with them when I go back. And then other friends that I made, you guys know who you are. You guys sometimes watch the live, so you guys know who you are. But really loved my time in Ghana. You know, there were some things that were challenges. There were some things that I loved. I mean, of course, you know, you're living in a country that doesn't have like readily available Amazon, right? Which is one thing I think that most people are addicted to in the States right now. But Ghana has pretty much everything else you could need. You just need to know where to go to find it, right? You got your hair products that you might need, more readily available and more accessible than I have seen here in Sierra Leone, that's for sure. Great barbershops, people that I know like to go to nail salons and hair salons, malls for shopping. You You have all kinds of attractions, luxury housing. I went go-karting, lots of amazing wildlife if you want to go there, lots of historical stuff. I mean, overall, I think Ghana was an amazing experience. And I'll be going back to Ghana often. I mean, I'm going twice in the next 4 or 5 weeks. So yeah, I mean, for me, I love Ghana. So I was only in Gambia for a week, so I can't really compare the two, except for the fact that obviously Ghana is much bigger. I think Accra and the country of Gambia might be around the same size. I know for sure Accra has more people in the city than Gambia has in the entire country, as far as I know. And so, I think that'd be one way to look at it. But I also know some people who've lived in Gambia and lived in Ghana, and they like them equally. So, but I really enjoyed my experience. I really liked it a lot. All right, so there's a couple of things that people are saying. International Observer said, yes, indeed, there are many views, but not yours. Bro, after 50 years of firstly growing up in that nation till finishing secondary school and observing, visiting, and participating since, nothing is changing. Okay, that's what you're saying about Sierra Leone. He's saying such deep potential, a nation that has a population half the size of Lagos state with 10 times plus resources can't power its capital in 2023. Oh boy. Abu Bakar says, I don't think the power ship in Sierra Leone is a ripoff to the nation. Oh, sorry. Don't you think the power ship in Sierra Leone is a ripoff to the nation? I don't know. I mean, if it's increasing power, I think it seems to be doing a service to the country. I don't know if the deal is a bad deal because I don't know how much energy should cost. I have no idea. So I can't answer that question, to be honest. A lot of people have opinions on it, though. I've heard so many people say they feel like the deal is a ripoff. Many of those people, though, of course, have been supporters of the current government because I think the deal was done under the previous administration. So what you have is, of course, differing political opinions that lead to people's belief systems in these deals. It kind of reminds me of the Iran nuclear deal that was done under Barack Obama. A lot of people from the opposite political party thought it was a bad deal. Of course, many people who were supporters of Barack Obama thought it was a good deal. So I think you're going to have a lot of people who have differing opinions. I can't tell you because I do not know how much fuel should cost. So that's a tough one. That is a tough one. Okay, cool. Any other questions, comments, or thoughts today? I need to get home to move my car because my next door neighbor is trying to park a car. And apparently she needs to do it ASAP, according to the sound of the bang that she was doing on the door when she got there. So I need to move the car. But any questions, comments, thoughts from anybody watching along about what my life is like here in Sierra Leone or what it was like in Ghana? So depending on how many more questions we have, I'll say this. Let me shout out Pearl Hotel for sure, because I mean, I don't know how many times I've gone live at the Pearl Hotel. I think we're on eight times I've gone live here, and they've come through in a clutch for me because I had been having a hard time going live. You guys might remember when I was in Ghana, I went live from my bedroom every Monday, no issues. Sometimes the network wasn't so great. I've gone live from France. I've gone live from Egypt. I've gone live from Germany. I've gone live from. Did I go live from Germany? Maybe I didn't go live from Germany. That was the week I might have had to skip it. But I went live from LA, from New York, and Atlanta. I've gone live from Atlanta. And the only place that I have had such a challenge going live is here in Sierra Leone. And so when the folks at the Pearl allowed me to start using their place to go live, I'm so appreciative of them because you guys have no idea how difficult it was for me to find a place with consistent light and consistent internet connectivity. So Tim Black says, what is positive going on in Sierra Leone? It's a good question. So one thing I would say that's positive going on in Sierra Leone is I see a lot of expats, repats, and diasporans moving here. I think that is a huge positive. I think that is going to lead to diversity of thought diversity of businesses, increased competition is really important for business. What you find is when there isn't competition, the businesses tend to become complacent. And that's not just in this country, that's anywhere. You guys know the cable companies in America is like an oligopoly. There's like a couple of cable companies. In most cities, there's only like one or two. And so they don't change their pricing. There's no new innovation happening. Businesses are basically the same. But when it comes to like social networks or social media platforms, you notice that since there's always a new entrance every couple of years, they're all evolving and constantly changing. So when you have competition, you make adjustments and you make changes. And so for me, I think it's important to see that. And so as other people come into the country, start starting businesses, we'll start to see a little bit more of that, and we'll be able to remove ourselves of the complacency that we've seen here, and really start to get people focused on offering true value for people's services. So CR says, I'm in ATL right now. Nice, CR. Tim Black said, I'm still kind of salty about the meetup that didn't happen in Atlanta. I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry about that meetup that didn't happen in Atlanta. Many meetups did not happen across the continent of North America. You guys have no idea how difficult it was to try to meet up with everyone and all the meetings I was trying to have around the US when I got there, because I had been gone for 2 years. And it was my first time in Atlanta ever. And so I was celebrating a birthday, seeing family, seeing friends, and it was just very difficult to try to navigate all of that and finding a location, and it just was poorly planned, and without a personal assistant, it made it very difficult. So in the end, we weren't able to execute on that. But for future reference, next time I go to the States, I will make sure I have that stuff planned far in advance. And once I do, I won't announce anything until that has all been planned. We have a location, we have a date set, and it is for sure going to happen. That will be the only time I'll be announcing any in-person meetups, because I made that mistake of wanting to do it early on and not having locations and not having dates set, and just wasn't able to do it considering my travel schedule. Gerald says, has the fuel price affected you as well as the country? Are you seeing more or less vehicles on the street? I'm not seeing less vehicles on the street necessarily, but the fuel price has affected me for sure. Yeah, it's affected me. When we used to take the car from Freetown to Bo, it was 900 Leones previously to fill up the tank. I just filled up I had already put in 400 Leones, and then I just put in another 2,400 Leones. So it's like 2,800 or so, if I'm not mistaken. Was it 1,500 or 2,800? Man, whatever. So it was either 2,000 or 3,000 Leones versus 900 Leones previously to fill the tank. So yeah, it's definitely affected me for sure. For sure. So yes, the answer is yes, it's been affected. It's affected me. And then outside of that, and which is also why the car is parked and I'm taking a bike home as opposed to have been driving the car here. Also, separately from that, taking public transport, taking a bike or taking a keke here, those prices have gone up as well. So yeah, for sure. Hope that answers your question. Knowledge Seeker says, have you been to Liberia? And if you have, was it like, does it remind you of Sierra Leone? I haven't been to Liberia, unfortunately, as of yet, but it's on the list of places to go sometime in the near future. Probably a 2024 trip, but yeah, I plan to go. Kanona Minor says, does anyone know what are the cheapest countries in Africa to migrate to? Good vibes. I hear a lot about South Africa. I hear Uganda. I hear Rwanda. These are all places that I hear good things about in terms of pricing. But I'll let other people jump in and answer that question, because that is anecdotal and that is not based on any like empirical data. It's just what I hear from people. So they might know better than me. I don't know for sure, but I'll let you guys answer that if you guys have any answers to that. I do want to give a moment for people to answer that particular question. Before we go, I do want to mention to everyone, many of you had supported in the past the YouTube channel through super chats and all that kind of stuff. My channel is no longer eligible for that on YouTube. So if you want to support in any other way, you see that scrolling on the bottom of the screen there. You can go to Zelle or Cash App and support in that way. So now let's see. It says, when will you be going to Nigeria again? I don't actually have the dates of when I'm going to Nigeria. I'm really trying to make that happen ASAP. It's been challenging for sure to make it happen, but yeah, I have to make it happen. And one day I'll have to tell you guys how I got scammed by a Nigerian who probably is watching this live right now, actually, who disappeared on me. They scammed me. I am definitely not gonna say it wasn't for like a ton of money, but it was more money than it should have been. And it was somebody I was supposed to go into business with, and they scammed me. So they used to watch my lives all the time. I knew them personally since I first moved to Ghana. They were living in Ghana, and they scammed me. Yep, I got scammed, guys. So maybe that's the story. Maybe I'll do that story for the next live. I'll tell you guys how I got scammed. Well, one of these days I'll do it, because that's an interesting story. So I definitely think that's something I should tell you guys about. Tim Black says, what is the area there with good roads and nice houses and condos? Are you speaking of Sierra Leone in particular? What's area? Somebody was telling me in Aberdeen there's some nice houses. It can be sporadic kind of any and everywhere. But you know what? I'll have to follow up with you on that. But a lot of people say Aberdeen for sure. Knowledge Seeker says, LOL, stop, and no bad news on Nigeria. Well, it wasn't in Nigeria. It was in Ghana, but it wasn't Nigerian. So that did happen. And it was like just blatant scam. Straight up. Somebody I knew for 2 years. We were going into business together. And they just disappeared. Well, I don't know if they changed their number. I guess they just blocked me. But yeah, it's pretty crazy, actually. That actually happened. The CR says, I have a couple investors I've convinced to invest in Sierra Leone. Given that you are on the ground in the country, where is a good place to direct those investment resources? It's a good question. You and I should connect. You asked me for my WhatsApp number, right? So let's connect. Because I think that there are a couple of different places, and I want to know what they want to invest in, what they're thinking about, and we can talk about how we can guide them into the right places. I know some clothing businesses that could use some investment dollars. I know of other businesses, like micro lending businesses that could use some investment dollars. So it depends on what they're looking like, what business sector they're looking to invest in. But I'm more than happy to make some introductions. And I also know some incubators as well, where they could potentially be helpful. So yeah, definitely. All right, guys, this has been a fruitful discussion. Any other questions, comments, thoughts before we call it a night? And I have to go move the car that has distressed people, apparently. Any other questions, comments, thoughts, concerns? All right. Nobody was able to answer that question about what area is the best. Laura says, thank you again, of course. Always happy to help. JL says, thanks, it's been good. I'm glad you found it useful. Knowledge Seeker says, also, how was Kenya? Did you go to that event? That event is going to be December 28th through January 8th. So I have not gone as of yet. But I will be happy to tell you about what Kenya is like from the perspective of an influencer once I take the trip. And I also like to tell you about Tanzania trip too, because I'm really excited about the Tanzania trip, which is coming up in like 3 weeks. So in Ghana, I'm also going to, so people have been asking me about this, migrating culture. You guys asked me to go live and talk about this, and I talked about it about a year ago. I've been in touch with Eric, and I'm actually going to be interviewing Eric and going to the land to do a video there. So we'll do a tour, and so he reached out and asked if we could do it, and I'm definitely going to be doing that. So I'll be doing that while I'm in Ghana in the next week or so, and then following that, I'll be going on that influencer trip to Tanzania. So things are rolling as an influencer these days. I'm really excited about it. Tim Black said, please do some house hunting videos. I will be doing house hunting videos for sure in Kenya, absolutely, Mombasa. And then I have a free day in Nairobi, so I will do my best to see if I can do some house hunting. In Tanzania, I will see if I can do it as well. We have, I think, 1 or 2 free days in Tanzania too. So I want to see if I can do that as well. Nalasika said, Kenya year of return event. It's yeah, I mean, it's considered like a year of return event, but it's is a little bit different. But it's the event that I talked about a little earlier that Kia Wakesho Simmons is doing with her group, and so I'm really excited about that. CR said you're going to email me now. Nice. I'll be checking my email later. Tim Black says have a good evening. All right, so I want to thank you guys all for joining. Shout out to Gloria for joining on TikTok. And I think Fatima joined on TikTok as well. Shout out to you two. I know you guys personally, so shout out to y'all for joining on TikTok. Excuse me. I think that's it for now, guys. As always, if you like this content, hit that thumbs up. Make sure you hit that thumbs up so people know, and it boosts on the algorithm. Share this with anybody you might know who's planning on visiting Sierra Leone or visiting the continent of Africa and wants to know about what's going on in the news on the continent of Africa. Okay, there's a lot coming in now. I was just about to say bye, and then some comments and stuff are coming through. Abu Bakar says, have you moved to your new house? I haven't moved yet. That's coming this week. I will be moving right before I leave for another area. Well, yeah, I'll say it. Before I leave for Bo. Cannon Miner says, no, thank you. Oh, thank you, because they're helping me out. Yes, yeah, of course. More than happy to. Nala says, which city in Sierra Leone do you like the most? I mean, right now it's Freetown, but I've really only spent a significant amount of time in Freetown and in Bo, a little bit of time in Kenema. But for the most part, I like Freetown the most. Lenora says, see you soon. See you soon. Africa and Merge says, safe travels. Thank you. I'll be live in Sierra Leone before I travel to Ghana, though, one more time. And then the following live will be in Ghana. Wait. Yeah, the following live will be in Ghana. Tim Black says, I was talking about house hunting in Sierra Leone. Oh, I will be doing some house hunting in Sierra Leone. Yes, and I'll do some videos on that. I want to do some real estate videos. There's a local Sierra Leonean, a couple local Sierra Leonean content creators who've done some stuff. Gloria, who I shouted out on TikTok, my former social media manager. My goodness, my next door neighbor is calling me again. She really wants to move this car. I thought she was told that at 11 o'clock I'll be home. It is 10:28. She's called for the 4th time, guys, the 4th time. She's been told that I'm live and I cannot answer the phone. And she's calling for the 5th time. My goodness. So Africa Emerge said I'll be in Sierra Leone in December. Nice. Abu Bakar said thanks for all the updates. Knowledge Seeker says good show. Bye for now. All right. Thank you. Appreciate it. Bye for now, guys. It appears that I have to answer this phone call because my phone has been ringing off the hook by this lady. So with that, guys, I want to thank you for watching. I will have to see you all on the next video. Sorry. This is what I meant to do.